Hi, I'm Bill from CJ Pony Parts. There's a lot of Focus ST owners that either already have or are seriously considering upgrading to a new Focus RS. Now, the RS has a serious performance benefit over the ST, but also shares some of the same issues, and one of them being wheel hop. Now, you might be wondering how an all-wheel drive car suffers from wheel hop. Well, in the case of the RS, a lot of the power still goes to the front tires, and like the ST, the rear motor mount is very soft, allowing the engine to move and create wheel hop. The best way to fix that is an aftermarket motor mount, so here we're going to install CPE Stage 2 xFlex mount on our Focus RS. We have used the CPE xFlex mount previously in Focus ST installations and it always works real well. It is a much firmer mount, so you get a little bit of NVH over the stock one, but it's totally worth it because of the difference in the strength of this mount. Got rid of all the wheel hop in our previous Focus. Like all CPE parts, the build quality on their xFlex mount is top notch. It's made of 6061 billet aluminum, then has their EPDM bushing, in this case a 65A Durometer bushing, which would be a good middle of the road between traction and still livable noise and vibration. For this installation, you'll need a lift or a jack and jack stands, 3/8 ratchet, 15mm socket, 19mm socket, T30 Torx bit, torque wrench, 15mm wrench, shorty 15mm wrench, flathead screwdriver, and a 10mm Allen key. Ford even realized the ST had an issue with traction with the motor mounts and swapped out all early Focuses to an electric mount. The RS has that same electric Focus mount, which works well, but definitely not the level of a high-performance car like the RS. We're going to begin the installation by removing this cover. I'm going to explain the process, and Freddie here is going to handle the wrenching. The lower cover is held on by 4 push-pin clips, 2 on each side and 2 in the middle, and then a bunch of Torx screws. Here's your factory rear engine mount. As you can see, it's a 2-piece setup. You have the mount itself and then the bracket that bolts to the transmission. Unlike a lot of them that just replace the mount, the CPE is a 2-piece and replaces both of these pieces. First thing we're going to do is actually separate the two. We're going to remove the motor mount first and then the bracket. The mount's separated from the bracket. Now we can unbolt it from the subframe. Now to get the bracket off the transmission, there's going to be 3 bolts. There's going to be one on the side, one on the front side here, the other one in the back that has a plug over it. You got to pull the plug off to get to it. Now the last one is the hardest to get to. You have to remove that plug from the stud, move the hoses out of the way to access it. You can remove the mount and the bracket. You can see the difference in quality between the stock 2-piece mount and our CPE mount. If you look at this, on the stock one, you actually have 2 bushings. You get the one here, which as you can see is a lot of flex to it, and another second one over here, which again, same idea. Got a lot of flex to that as well. The CPE does give you a solid mount on one side, so there's no play here at all. And all the play is going to be in this bushing here, which is much stronger than the factory. I mean, you can still move it, but it's a lot stronger, have a lot less movement. Definitely do a good job getting rid of our wheel hop. The first step in installing the CPE is actually to assemble the mount and the bracket together. You're going to do that on the table off the car, and then put the whole assembly up into place. Once the hardware is on, you're going to leave it hand tight and put the assembly up in the car. Now you can put the new mount up into place. You may have to shimmy the engine just a little bit to get everything in there. we're going to reinstall the factory bolts with a dab of Loctite on the front here, and on the back edge here, I'm going to use a supply bolt from CPE for this one under here. Now you can start tightening the bolts, but you want to make sure you get all 3 bolts in before you snug them down. Okay, now that all 3 bolts are hand tight, we can go back through and tighten all 3 down. Now what you want to do is line up the rear bolt for the mount and put it back into place. You can use the factory bolt again with a little bit of Loctite on it. You may have to push against the transmission and engine to get it to line up. Now you retorque the factory bolt to 80 foot-pounds. Now we're going to torque the motor mount to bracket bolt to the same 80 foot-pound. And you reinstall the cover and your installation is finished. Now looking at the CPE mount, you can immediately tell it's going to do a much better job. You're going from 2 soft rubber mounts to one EPDM mount that's a much firmer bushing to do a much better job. So the question I know a lot of you are going to ask is, what's the NVH like? Is it bad? Do you notice it? Honestly, the only time I notice it, so if you're at a stop from about 1,000 to 1,500, just right when you let the clutch out and pull out, you can feel a little bit more. It's not bad. It's not, the car doesn't shake, the shifter doesn't shake. That's where you can feel it. Now let's go out on the road a little bit and we'll see how it is for normal driving. Now on the road, going through the gears, feels exactly the same. There's no additional vibration through the shifter, nothing at all. I mean, it feels exactly like the car felt yesterday when we were out on the road driving it. The only time you feel it even at all is if you almost get to the point where you're bogging the motor. It's that 1,000, I'll say 1,000 to 1,500 seems to be where it's at. Like I'm down, get it down there. We normally wouldn't drive anyway, but down there, yeah, as soon as the motor bogs just a little bit, you feel it. You do feel a little more vibration. You feel it in the seat, get a little bit through the shifter. But normal driving, you don't even notice it. So really, the only time you really are going to feel any kind of NVH change is just when you're pulling out from a traffic light, when you first put it in gear. You know, if you pull out between 1,000 and 15 at a low RPM, normal, traffic light launch, you're going to get a little bit of it. But again, normal driving, now I'm just cruising at 2,000 RPM now. We're in 5th gear doing 45 miles an hour. And yeah, nothing. Feels exactly the same way as it felt with the stock stuff in place. Again, right there, just as soon as you let the clutch out, you get a little bit. Let's try actually. Yeah, if you rev it up a little higher, it goes away. It's just that barely off idle. Just like right there. I mean, just from idle, just revving it to 1,000, 1,200. Feel a little bit in there, but you rev it past there, it's completely gone. Again, that idle range, you don't feel it at idle at all. It's just in that little window. And honestly, the only time you're ever going to be in there is if a nice a light launch. That's it. Launch is the wrong word, like, pulling out in the traffic, pulling off from a traffic light, whatever. Side note, this car still is an absolute blast to drive. A lot of people have asked me my opinion of the RS. Is it worth the price over the ST? Is it worth the same money as a Mustang GT? And it's just a different car. I mean, it's, for everybody, is it worth it? Probably not, but depends what you're looking for. I mean, it's a firmer ride. It's definitely more performance oriented, and it is a fun car to drive. I'm assuming, like the other models, like the STs and the Mustangs we've worked on, the more mods we do it, probably the more fun it'll get. Sure, once we get a few more mods, cold air tune, downpipe, stuff like that, this thing should probably pick up quite a bit of power too. But yeah, whether you're track car, weekend warrior, daily driver, whatever, no reason at all not to go with one of these CPE mounts. I mean, it does a great job. It definitely gets, there's no wheel hop issues at all. The car just basically hooks and goes. And I said the vibration issue is nothing to worry about. It's definitely okay for any kind of driving. It's like literally, you'll notice it at 1 RPM point, and that's it.